Our next presentation consists of a collaborative work of a group of students: senior studio art major Sophia Alonge, junior history and sociology major in the honors program, summer Apostol, junior environmental studies major Allison Cernoch, and a freshman art education major and Bonner scholar, Theresa Mitten. This is a diverse group of individuals representing a wide range of backgrounds, skills, strengths, and experiences that they bring to the discipline of museum studies, an area that was otherwise previously unfamiliar to all of them. Brought together by a common interest through the Museum Studies class, they have conducted research related to creating an original museum exhibition, curating, designing, registering, preparing artworks, researching, and writing scholarly museum signage for each work. This research led to the massive undertaking of executing a full feature exhibition from the permanent art collection of Emory Henry College entitled Faces. This exhibition is currently on display here in the McLaughlin Center for the Arts and the Rena Lynch Wren Permanent Collection Gallery. This unique research has given them new skills in effective visual communication and allowed them the opportunity to educate their fellow students, academics, faculty, staff, and community members on the subjects and themes presented through their published research.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Summer Apostol. This is Theresa Mitten, Allison Cernoch, and Sophia Alonge, and we are the Museum Studies class of Spring 2017. And before we get started telling you about our process of curating our own gallery exhibit, we wanted to thank some people who helped us in our curatorial endeavor, because without them, we would not be here on this stage today.
First, we would like to thank our donors, Mrs. Barbara Chavatel, Ralph Grant, and the Harmons. Without them, we would not have the permanent collection that we have today.
Second, we would like to thank those who have helped us in our research. So thank you to the library staff, family members of featured artists, those in the Alumni and Development Office, and the PR Office.
And lastly, we would like to thank our faculty advisor, Dan Van Tassell. Thank you for setting high standards for us and giving us constructive criticism, which makes us the curators and preparators and researchers that we could be to complete this project.
So museums are a part of our culture. We all had that field trip in elementary school to the local museum, and even if you haven't been back to a museum since, which you should because museums are awesome, you all have that memory. You have some concept of what a museum is. Now, you probably think of museums as places that have dinosaur bones or ancient Greek and Roman art. But museums are honestly so much more than that, as we have learned in our class. They're outside and they feature cultural practices and buildings, or they're national parks. So from learning this in our class, it was a lot easier to curate our own exhibit, breaking down these like our concepts of what a museum is. Another thing that really helped us to curate our own exhibit was helping visiting artists install their shows this semester. From this process, we learned about lighting and how to hang pieces of art, how to put dirt in a gallery, and how to lay cars down on the floor. It was really cool. But the main thing that we learned from this process was that nothing ever goes as planned. So with this mindset of nothing is ever as it seems, we ventured into our permanent art collection, which is on the first floor of this building, adjacent to the radio station.
When we first went into our permanent collection, Professor Van Tassell told us to choose pieces that spoke to us. Don't worry if they go together right now, just choose pieces we liked. This was pretty easy because we all had similar tastes, and I'm pretty easily impressed, honestly. We ended up with about 30-ish pieces that we all felt really good about. The hard part was then to cut down at least a third of these pieces to create a solid, cohesive show. Some pieces we were really passionate about, while others, some of us were more iffy on.
The next part of our curatorial endeavor was when we opened up our catalog. And after we looked through our permanent collection to see what pieces we liked, we had to find them in our catalog, which has all of the pieces in our permanent collection, along with important information on them, such as their provenance, which is the historical context of an object based on who may have owned it or the time period that it was created in. And from there, in our catalog, to start our research, we first had to find the artist and the title, at least, to begin.
So we had all this basic information on our pieces, but we had to find a way to connect them all together to create a cohesive show. And what we found was that we gravitated toward pieces that featured people with faces that showed emotion that we could empathize with, and people whose stories probably wouldn't normally be told. And so we found that our common connection were humans and their faces.
So we found our theme, our common connection. Our next step was to do research on our pieces. Since all of our pieces are not done by well-publicized artists who would easily be researched in JSTOR or in books in the library, we ended up relying heavily on those who knew the artists or those who were at Emory Henry when we acquired the art piece. I personally felt like this type of research was more fun and rewarding than anything you can find in a book or a scholarly journal. Through mostly phone calls and emails, we made connections with people from all over the South that we would not have been able to make otherwise. Talking with these people has given more life to the faces in the artwork, because these people remember intimate information about the artist, the artwork, and the context from when the art was created that you cannot find in a catalog or online.
The next part of our journey was to prepare our works for exhibition. And from there, we learned a lot about preparatory work. And as you can see in this image, we were going to replace a mat that had some minor acid burns on a piece and replace it with archival material that does not have acid in it. And from there, we had the opportunity, which was challenging but definitely very rewarding, to remat and also to reframe pieces to prepare them to be put out in our permanent collection.
We then used our research to write the panels, the blocks of information posted next to an art piece. We wanted to introduce the artist. What kind of artwork was it? Was it a collagraph? Was it oil on canvas? When was it created? How did Emory Henry come to acquire this piece? We wanted to give enough backstory and context about the artist and his life to create an interpretation. We also had to get the formatting and citing correct. It was quite a scholarly endeavor.
And following that, we finally had the opportunity to lay out our pieces to see how we would want them to be displayed for a cohesive show. And we definitely put a lot of work into thinking what would go where, because each piece tells their own story, but we also arranged them so that each piece would interact with one another to create a new story. So after a lot of work of moving pieces back and forth to see what would look best to one another, we came to a general consensus. And following that, most people don't think that math is involved in museum studies, but it is. And from there, we did some mapping on our walls of where we should put our pieces of work on the walls, and also their panels, so they would all have a nice clean layout and the design would play well for reading.
This project has been like no other project I've done before. I've been able to hands-on experience all the techniques I learned in my museum studies classes, but instead of separately, I did it one after the other, like somebody who preserves artwork or curates a show would normally do. Museums have always laid close to my heart, and to understand what it takes to run one makes it even more important.
Growing up, I always liked museums, and to be quite honest with you, I really decided to pursue my passions after seeing the Night at the Museum movie when I was about 10 years old. And museums have always been important to me because you can go back in time to a place you wouldn't have existed, but you still get to know it so well. And when I first signed up for museum studies, it was definitely a trial by fire moment. There was never a dull moment, and there were always things we could do and get done. And going off of what Summer said, installations were a huge part of growing my skill set. And for my first installation I did, it was a wing and a prayer, and I had to gently pin bugs to the wall. But also in Codex, we had to shovel dirt and keep it low to the floor so we could keep our gallery space nice and neat. So I'm very grateful to have taken the museum studies class because it has extended my abilities and it will make me more applicable in my future field.
Personally, for me, helping with installs throughout the semester and then curating my own show is the first time I put hours upon hours of work into something and absolutely loved it the whole time. And I'm no artist, so to have this world of art shared with me through the role of curator, preparator, and researcher was absolutely amazing. And I want you all to feel the exact same things I did throughout this whole process when you see our show. So please join us at the end and outside of the stairs, you know, right there near the gallery. That's where our show is. So please go see it, and I hope you love it as much as we do. Thank you.